now that we've got the nerves out of the way, what up? It's time finally for my recap. I've been making fun of everybody else for struggling through theirs, and it's time. It's time to suffer right along with everyone.
It's true.
Because it's worse for me if I forget it because I made it up. So basically whatever I say now, I can just say is what the intention was. It was a metaphor. And if I ever get anything wrong, it was a metaphor. And I'll save it. Session 1. Leaving home.
Yes.
Flying, leaving the nest. Denesting. Flitting away. The Tots, they set off from Amber Crag, and I'm very thankful that they don't immediately turn around and go explore Amber Crag. Because at the time, I was not ready.
For the immediate turnaround?
Yeah.
For the, we're not ready, let's go.
I would have been like, okay,
and that's what we'll call it.
Yeah, I'd have been like, okay, I need a week. I did not think you would turn around. Because I was a very linear, I was gonna say lineary. That's not a word. I was a very linear DM when we started. I knew where I wanted you guys to go, and I wouldn't plan really around that. And since then, I've learned to be a much more improvisational DM with you guys, because you keep me on my toes. So you guys leave home, and immediately start asking for very reasonable things that I hadn't thought to be ready for. So we have incidents involving camps and such along the roads. But I figured the best way to distract you guys while I got my Pokemon sea legs was to throw some low-level encounters at you. And as we all know and have learned from watching the show, I love weird, bad Pokemon that just confuse and distract you for a while to buy me some time to think. So William stealing a chef hat from Phoebe was simply the result of Phoebe asking, or rather Tia asking if Phoebe could have a chef's hat. And I said, yeah, sure, just so I can take it from you. And then create conflict. Because you've asked for something, which means you wanted it, so I'm going to take it from you. And then you'll go after this thing, and then you'll do the thing that I have ready for you, which is the William and subsequently Violet encounters. Because I wanted to offer some low-level entry position stuff for people to get... some I keep wanting to call them cheap, but they're not. It's not a store. Just some low encounter, high potential for growth Pokemon.
Did you expect both to be captured?
No. I honestly, genuinely thought you guys were going to metagame it and say, this is going to suck later, I don't want it. So I'm very proud of you for catching both of those things. That is what I remember from Session 1.
Okay.
Session 2 is stretching our wings, spreading our wings, stretching our wings.
Yep.
This is Monty's first test flight to Oriander.
Yep.
Very poorly timed, but your heart was in the right place. Session 2, I think I told you guys right after, was my attempt to force you guys to coalesce into a group by immediately putting all of you in mortal peril. It also let me test out how the group dynamic is when you take the person who thinks the most and acts the least and forces them to kind of sit back and just watch everybody else think for them. But I'm getting ahead of myself, of course. That's how it ends. Stretching our wings, this is the Daniel, Lyle, and Jess encounters, if I'm remembering correctly. I might be skipping ahead again. I can never in my head remember if they show up. No, they definitely show up first, because Lyle is your guys' only hint of hey, Spinarak are dangerous, so stay clear of them. Jess, I will admit, is a character that I had no plan for. I had no idea what I wanted. And I feel comfortable saying that now, 2.5 years later. I had no idea. I thought you guys would think Lyle was kind of fun and a little quirky, and then he would go away. And he's like a crowd favorite and one of mine too. And Daniel was my attempt to shoehorn myself into the campaign to answer some simple questions of how the game is played and how it functions and how it works. The unnamed hiker guy whose tent you tried to break into was a similar way. It was me with a very light hand saying, hey, this is a living world with people and not everybody wants to interact with you because I'm not ready for it. But also there are consequences. So you break into somebody's tent, they start to grumble themselves awake. And I also, for half a second, was thinking it might be a graveler. So I wanted to keep it kind of vague. I thought it would be really funny if there was a graveler in a tent.
That's funny.
That you guys unzip and break in there. But yes, and then obviously at the end we have Phoebe being mauled by Ariados, which is just bad luck, really. It's just terrible luck.
Natural one.
Terrible, terrible luck. The intention was not to do that, actually. It was just to scare Phoebe, which is what all, I think, murderers say. I didn't mean to.
I just wanted
to scare you. And then it went wrong. It was a prank, bro. Yeah. It's just a prank. But yeah, the goal was to startle Phoebe, and then start the next session with Phoebe in danger, but not already dying. But a natural one is a natural one, and I was very brutal DM back then. And I was like, yes, there must be consequences. You've rolled poorly. So naturally you have to die. Session 3 is a venomous exchange. We have the spider fights. We fight Spinnerax. This was me testing how the balance would work if I had a bunch of little monsters or one big monster. I am much more the fan of one big monster that is an incredible threat on its own because I have a horrible memory. So I will get lost in initiative really quickly, which is bad, which is why we have the initiative monitors in the new studio so that everybody can see it and help me stay honest. Because I'm not a DM that hates players planning for their turn. I think it's great when things go more efficiently. Especially since I've started editing too. I like it better when everybody has a plan. They know who's on deck. It's great, and I'm sorry I didn't do that for you sooner. But yeah, so the spiders coming out. I didn't have a plan of how many spiders there were. I knew the Spinnerack were minions. All you had to do was hit them. If you hit them, they went away. Whether they die, explode, run away, whatever. That was the basis of like mass combat that I had been playing around with, was having minions and making it look like a much bigger force, and then you start hitting them and they dwindle, and then you get that sense of power, like, hey, we held off an entire swarm of spiders. The Ariados was on the table for capturing, but I think I set the number at like 95 and above.
Oh, wow.
If anybody had tried to catch it. I very early on kind of had this idea. It's similar to how like Sword and Shield work. If the Pokemon is, X number of levels above you, you just have like almost no chance to catch it. That's how most boss catches go as well. And I'll cover again when we get further ahead of ways that I've sort of circumvented that, but have tried to allow it wherever I can. Shout out to my boy Riot. But yeah, so Venomous Exchange ends. You guys get to Oriander City. We roll right on into Ansem, Mitch and Terry, the fun folks. I think probably a third of Oriander is entirely improv in that session, and I think it shows. There's a lot of I had this idea at the start that every trainer needed 3 Pokemon on their team, and every Pokemon had to have a nickname, and I burned myself out really fast. It took me a long time to get any progress done. So I abandoned that pretty quick, and Oriander is like the first test run where I realized how much work that was going to be, and I moved on from it, and I kind of thought like, oh, I can improv, a whole town's worth of Pokemon, but then you start to get everybody's the same. They all have the same 3 or the same, 1 or 2 intermingled in. But the intention of Oriander City was a place for Monty to go, a place where the Tots could figure out how towns were going to work, have a general store, have an Ansem type individual. I always have some weird aspect of my brain stuck into a town. Ansem is one, Xavier is another. They're all just like weird, exaggerated personality quirks or things that I pick up on, and a lot of them are to get a rise out of either Jordan or Ben. I do that a lot, especially with Bentley. It's really fun pulling Bentley out of his little Bentley shell. I like to see how the pieces tick, and Jordan and I just have a very similar sense of humor. So if I throw a silly voice and a lot of weird quirks at him, it helps to ease some tension. So I'll do that a lot if I'm nervous or kind of floundering. I'll do that. But Mitch and Terry were designed to be an entirely friendly space so that if the Tots got lost or disoriented or Stetson Farms was not something they wanted to do, they could go hang out with Mitch and Terry. They had the baby mill tanks, which is where we get Moana, who I invented a whole spin-off of songs from Moana for Moana and then promptly forgot them because I didn't write them down. Moana was really fun to create because I wanted something that was super useful and very team supporting to help Tegan's character fit in a little bit more because there was a lot of suspicion with everybody, and I wanted to ease that tension by giving Tegan a tool in Moana that could help her friends so that you could have that little bond of like, oh, hey, Monty's really beat up right now. He's on death saves. Be like, oh, let me do heal bell for you. I'll use one of my counters. So that's what Moana's intentions were. And sending Monty somewhere, I wanted the Oriander mission to go well. I wanted to boost both Milo's and Monty's confidence so that you would try that again in the future, because there were things that I had ideas for that would require Monty to be away from you. So things like Monty coming back with something you didn't expect or intercepting some other thing. And we play a lot of that with P-Dove. P-Dove was a very fun last-minute addition. But I think the in between that and the next one is that Bentley's Profitable Morning. Is that what we get to? Or am I skipping one?
Session 4 was We'll Battle for Money.
Okay,
so that's the fighting. 5 is Not You, Not To.
Okay, Stetson Farms
is the morning.
Okay, so I'll touch on Stetson Farms because that's in a session that I don't think is ever going to hit daylight, because it was non-canonical. I don't want you to worry about it. It was not main canon group. It was I convinced my parents to play. So those of you who watched Ragnarok, you will have seen Troy. That is my dad. That is our dad. We are brothers. I know that is a revelation sometimes that comes up a lot. So I knew my dad would be a blast to play D&D with. I just needed him to try it. So this was a way to do that. And my mom was just like so lovely and decided to play with us. So it was a good time. But they played as Penelope, Augie, and Sam Pam, and they ran through Oriander in a flash sideways, if you will, where they run into a Milo who does not exist, so that Milo could help me teach them the rules. And they got to do the festival in Oriander that we glossed over, because I had it kind of ready, and then I had this encounter with Team Rocket that I wanted to do, and the Team Rocket thing hit too hard, and I scared them out of the town, so they didn't stay. They didn't stay on Oriander, they moved on, because CJ's got his whole thing going on. He wanted to go because Team Rocket had showed up. So they got to do that. It was mostly like carnival games and stuff. It was just a lot of just dice rolling of like, hey, roll a d6. If you roll higher, you got a higher card and you win. But there were little prizes and stuff. But more importantly, we dove into Stetson Farms a lot deeper than we do in the main campaign. Now, I didn't use any of this because it never came up. And going forward, if they were to go back to Oriander, I don't think I would keep it the same. But Penelope and Sam go to Stetson Farms to get a tour. We meet Bertram and Delilah, the two folks who run Stetson Farms, who I don't know if they ever even come up. They get mentioned.
We got names.
Yeah, they get mentioned. But Bertram is basically like horrible plantation owner status of like pushing Pokemon way past their limits. And Delilah is kind of complicit and also like cooks the books to make things look legit. And they have Manon, a Mr. Mime, who is an overseer for them. And Manon is the inspiration for the Mr. Mime who is currently plaguing the Tots in the later sessions. Because Manon had the same abilities, basically. He could trap people inside of his mime box. He could shoot them if he so chose. And Penelope befriended Manon in an incredible twist of luck and now has him on her team. So if there is ever a crossover, I have to imagine the gang will be very leery of Manon, who is literally able to just do whatever he wants. But yeah, enough of this banter. Back to the main session at hand. We have Bentley's Profitable Morning and Will Battle for Money is basically just, again, it's a test of how much work is it to fill a 2-hour session with battles of various individuals. You get Gil, Cassius the Gaseous, all those super memorable guys. You get the Magnemite, whose name escapes me, but is like weird.
Oh, it's Binary?
Yeah, Binary. It was super weird. I thought it was a cool name, and then I said it, and I was like, this is really stupid. That happens a lot. After 5-3 is the rocket fight, and then subsequently the traveling
fight,
to...
5 is Stetson Farms, 5.3 is the Bentley's Morning, and 6 is Mareep.
Mareep. I talk about Mareep a lot because Mareep gets talked about a lot. If you were to ask me at any given time what are my biggest regrets for the campaign, I have 2. One is not letting Mareep be slightly more catchable or just less dangerous. I wish I had fudged the damage rolls on static more than a few times. Because it honestly became a case of like I should have just said it got away. Because it was such a sunk cost fallacy for the Tots that they were like, we have to get this thing. It has to happen. Also, hello Grover. He's back. He's nice and cozy.
That's pretty adorable.
That is genuinely where he sleeps, right on my pillow, right there. He gets first dibs because he's cute.
He's so bundled.
So let me keep him in frame here because he's obviously the star of the show. But yeah, so Mareep is one. The biggest regret is not letting the ghost starters get captured, and we'll get to that when we get to that. Mareep in a hard place, I believe, is also Bang. Bang shows up. Bang's great. I really like Bang. Bang's one of my favorites. Just because his roles are always so tied to the narrative that it's like sickening to me. So I love it. Bang is really fun. I love how Jordan plays with him. I think it's really cool. It's a good avenue of a silent Pokemon, so I don't have to do that. So he's a lot more expressive than some of the others. And he's just been with the crew so long that I kind of just know what Bang's going to do. When Jordan says, okay, I want Bang to do this, I'm like, same wavelength, we're good, we're ready to go. But yeah, I really think it would have been a lot more fun if Mareep had been caught. That was the intention. I literally put it in there to taunt Joel, and then I should have just... I don't ever fudge damage rolls, and I really should, because that would have been a good case of like, let's fudge the rolls and say we didn't. That would have been much better, instead of like knocking out half the team halfway up a mountain. Because when you start to actually calculate Pokemon speed versus child speed, it's just sad. It's really sad. But that's all we'll say about that one. I think that was where I messed with you guys with a tree in the road. I said there's a tree in the road, and you guys go like 70 feet around it, and it's just a twig tree. It was to make fun of Cut.
If it wasn't that one, it was the next one.
Yeah, it was literally just to make fun of the games, because they go, oh yeah, there's a tree in the way. It's a twiggy bush. You'll have to cut it down. And I'm like, oh, if only we could go around. Big City Olivia?
Nope.
No, I skipped a step. What did I skip?
Spud and Pops.
Spud and Pops! How could I forget? The most memorable duo. Spud Pops and Lightyear, the oft-forgotten Electabuzz. Yeah, Spud and Pops was just...
reasonable.
For great reason, because that dude sucked. He could not roll. Yeah, Spud and Pops, I came up with the names, and I thought they were hilarious, and I said, you know what, I'm going to find a way to use these. The two guys it was literally just me having an improv session with myself. I was like, it was basically a Pokemon version of two dudes sitting in a park playing chess. and a bunch of kids walk up and they're like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Well, I have these funny names. I have Spud and Pops that I've written down. I might as well use them." And I needed a formidable opponent for Spud and Pops, and I said, "Well, an Electabuzz is probably about equal to these two." And I was horribly wrong. I've since made Electabuzz a little better. I mean, Sage is rocking it. Sage is incredible. And nobody has a Bellsprout yet, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, Spud and Pops was it was a fun fight. It was a good chance to let the Tots roll for something else to kind of see what's on the table. See what an Oddish can do, see what a Bellsprout can do. Nobody got to see what an Electabuzz can do because it didn't happen. And I glossed over Howl and Growl in there, which I think is in Mareep and Hard Place. Or right before. Because Howl and Growl...
It's in there. It's in that pocket.
Yeah, it's around the time of Bang because Crash busts up somebody's leg. You have Howl? Mm-hmm. Howl's leg. I always forget because Howl and Growl are both onomatopoeias for themselves. Which, Crash, Bang. I'm waiting for Pow. I don't know when that's coming. I'm sure it's soon. Just to haunt me. But yeah, so Howl and Growl are there. They try to take on Spud and Pops. It's a no-go. The dice weren't in it. Spud and Pops were...
The dice were in it, just not for
They were hot. Else. They were hot that day. Spud and Pops, it was the way to be at that time. After Spud and Pops, now we're on Big City?
Yep.
Okay. Big City Alluvia. Alluvia is a perfect example of why I never give my players a perfect, complete map rendition of any city they go to. Alluvia is as big as it needs to be because I think it's a lot more fun if the Tots can continue to explore. They could spend 30, 40 sessions in Alluvia and still find new things to do. But if I put everything on a map and I give it to them, then, there's 7 shops. Cool, we've been to all 7. Let's move on and never come back. But Alluvia is a place that I like them to revisit because then they can see that things are still evolving in the world. So Alluvia, my favorite example of NPC fixation is Officer David. We meet Officer David. He is a Growlithe because all policemen in Pokemon have Growliths and nothing else. So they meet him and then suddenly he's the only policeman in the whole city. So he's really got his work cut out for him. He's outnumbered like 19,000 to 1. We meet Xavier as well. CJ does his wrestling boy performance for a crowd of largely bewildered and indifferent adults who are like, I might as well watch this boy fight a monkey because I have nothing better to do with my time. But it was a good chance to get money and it's a great way to stay in shape. So that goes on. We meet Xavier. Xavier was a chance for me to introduce and test the waters for intrigue. I always want to do political intrigue in campaigns, and it almost never pans out, and that's okay. You take the good with the bad on that. So Xavier was a chance to do, spycraft and stuff, work a lot with ghosts, and I also really wanted to introduce the idea down the line for Remus. I wanted to plant the seed of like, hey, be on the lookout for ghost Pokemon. They can do some weird stuff. So you've got, Mischievous is always being kind of invisible and a little bit of a spy, but can also interact with the world. She can bring things back. She can walk things around. She can go through doors and walls. You got Deacon Halsey, who was very loosely inspired by Norman Osborn, but I just made him bigger and louder. It was a good chance to just scream on camera and kind of get a laugh out of everybody because they were like, he's so extra. Which is also why he's like orange and stuff, which is just great. He's also very loosely inspired by our fake Battle Master Stanley Cup with 2 Ps.
Yes.
Because I don't know if we'll actually use him, but I might. He has Phil Lip as his partner, Delibird. And then he also has a Lickitung, and I don't remember the Lickitun's name.
Yes.
Which is sad.
And that originated as an in-joke for us because neither of us care about sports in any capacity.
Oh, no.
And our dad is the opposite and likes every sport and loves all of them.
Except for hockey.
And so we were joking that, if you asked us to name hockey players, we could name Wayne Gretzky and Stanley Cup.
Yep. Yeah.
That was our in-joke.
I was like, okay, so if we have Stanley Cup and Philip, because why not? Then you would have a fun interaction. But that was before we even sat down to record beta sessions. I was just coming up with like dumb NPCs. Because that's what I did with my free time, is I would do that. So we have Deacon Halsey. He's very loud. I love that his ambitions have remained very subtle. Is he a big puppet? Is he a figurehead? Is he the mastermind? Nobody knows. And that's great, because then I don't have to know. And if I don't have to know, then nobody gets to know. So, Deacon Halsey, you've got the Bureau of Discovery, which is basically like the CIA. And they're sneaky, shady individuals, which is great, because the Phoebe caught right onto that. A lot of Alluvia was designed to pull in Phoebe's attention, just to see what Tia as a player was looking for in the game and how I could help her feel more engaged, because she's the player that asks me the most questions that either get me to very confused, go what, or just start laughing because they're just so out there. But it's good practice. So the Bureau of Discovery, she'll ask things like who pays grant money for the for the professors and stuff, like who funded your facility. And I'm like, I have no idea, but now I have to come up with an answer for you because you've come up with that question. So, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. You've got the Bureau of Discovery. We have the Right of Learning. We have, and the Right of Learning. God, I'm gonna be kicking myself for the doctor's name.
There wasn't one in the. Oh yeah, you're right. There was, huh?
Oof, I want to say Samuel something, but I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know. That's going to happen a lot, I think. But he didn't have a stutter until I stuttered a lot trying to come up with his lines, because that's a thing that I do. If I'm really confused or excited, I will stutter. So he got that. I think it's literally when Phoebe asks me who pays your grant money. And the stutter comes out, and I go, well, they're just going to think that he's lying to them. So I just had to lean into it. So I leaned into my own stutter there for him. But again, his name is gone. It's gone from here. I want to say it's Samuel Lawson. Dr. Lawson.
Right. I believe that.
Samuel Lawson. Somebody, well, I'll fact check it later and
Is he the Wadalonga one, though?
No.
The one that CJ talked to? Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get there. Dr. Lawson is somebody. Dr. Samuel, we'll move on. I don't know. There's a doctor there, and yes, he's the one who stammers. And then I wanted Carlia to be the Right of Learning. My idea at the beginning was the Right of Learning teacher was going to be the gym leader, and there was going to be one in every city. And they were going to help you before you knew who they were, get you stronger, and then also kind of know what you were about, so that if the gym leader did something like accidentally super tactical, it would make sense. It was basically me coming up with a reason why a Pokemon or a trainer would be smart in a moment in any given situation. Is if I accidentally gamed it too hard, then it would make sense. And I dropped that real quick. I dropped that right after Alluvia. I was like, no, these need to be separate things. Because I think I had a doctor character with this, I'm going to call him Samuel for now. I don't know if that's right. But we had this doctor, and we had Carlia, and I messed up, and I think I conflated the two. So they were going to the Right of Learning instead of somewhere else. And I messed up, and I said, okay, no, in that case, we're going to have these two things be slightly different. but Carlia and the Chatot are still going to very much be there because that was a cool character to me. I thought that was really fun. I do that a lot. Lavinia in Ragnarok is a character that I thought was really cool, so I kept shoehorning in because I wanted to just keep that involved because you gotta throw some stuff in for yourself or you're gonna drive yourself insane. Alluvia, we also have Donita, Dinos, and Ernie's.
Gyms happen.
And the gyms.
Yeah.
The first gym was really fun. I had a lot of fun with the first gym. I get asked a lot what would have happened if you had done this NPC for this other challenge. I have no idea is the bottom line. I don't know. I got lucky. Everybody seemed to go with mostly the same people. I think Phoebe is the only one that didn't pick Gavin for endurance. And I don't remember what she had to fight. It's been way too long. But the giant mantine was a fun idea that I had. And then I realized I had to explain why that could exist. I couldn't just say it. It needed a reason. So Gavin got some much needed character development on the fly. He went fishing and it capsized the boat. So there you go. That's where that came from. As for like what are his other Pokemon, stick around. Find out. Maybe someday. Who knows? But yeah, there's Hank, Christine, Gavin, and Carlia, and I think that's the only gym I'm going to remember everybody from. Because Hank had big Coke bottle glasses, and I thought that was hilarious, and a poncho. Or no, he's a jumpsuit boy. But yeah, that was a fun gym. I had a lot of fun with that. The Baron badge. It was really important for me to make the first gym that they did flying, because I wanted to show them that you didn't have to have the opportune matchup to beat the gyms. You don't need that. You need me to remember all the rules for the gym and the regulations for it as well, which is something I'm notoriously bad at. If you watch closely, I owe this guy 3 or 4 salty runbacks for gyms because I just made them unintentionally way too hard just because of the order that we did the gyms in. So going forward in the future, I do intend to be much more strenuous about it and actually post the rules in the studio so that everybody can tell what they are, and then there's no surprise revives because I feel bad because somebody was close. And that's genuinely why those things happen, is because people get really, really close, and then I feel bad, and I feel like they should get another chance. So we get through the gyms. Everybody gets that badge. Everybody earns it fair and square. And also it was good because Bang was able to do the agility ones to show that you don't need a bird to do the flying gym. Even though the task getting to the gym leaders is difficult and would be easier if you could fly, I needed to show that it wasn't necessarily a prerequisite for competing. Then you have Dino's and Ernie's, which we touched on a whole bunch. Everybody always fixates on these two, and I do as well. It was weird. It was a weird time. I needed to address the issue of who eats Pokemon and what Pokemon do you eat. It's a timeless classic question. They just did an Unraveled on it as well. The most edible Pokemon. That was a morale test for the Tots. It was to check their morals, to see what lengths do they go to get involved. Do they try to find the police and get somebody in there? Do they purchase the Pokemon? Do they try Pokemon food? Is that a dangerous road they want to go down? Do they want to open that door? And it also let us work out the question in game of what are they eating? Like when they're eating jerky, what is it? And it's jerky. That's the answer. That comes from cows, normal meat. Cows. It comes from meat, the flesh of an animal. Because the hand wave like tofu vegetarian option, while great for the anime and the shows and the movies and stuff, I needed something a little more tangible. And also I wanted the excuse to have Ruby down the line. Just gonna water it up. So that's Dino's and Ernie's. Mm-hmm. Who's after Dino and Ernie?
Making a little buddy.
Making a little buddy. Okay. Little Buddy, a.k.a. Arjan. Little Buddy was me thinking that Cyndaquil would be really, really cute if he had messy hair. And how do I get a Cyndaquil into this game? You have them wave at the Tots from across a ravine. They're looking for a way across it anyway. Let's have them find the bridge. Pure and simple. Little Buddy sticking around was not planned. If nobody had caught him immediately, the intention was for him to leave. But the interactions he was having with Milo were so just genuine and adorable that I decided that he should just stick around. Because I am normally loath to allow the Tots to fudge the limit of Pokemon they can have with them at a time. Because if you befriend 30 Pokemon and you have a whole horde following you, well, I haven't caught them. They're just my friends. You've tipped the scales very much in your favor. So what I kind of do is I allow them to foster to adopt. So if you keep Little Buddy with you for X amount of sessions and you don't have any intention to catch him, he will eventually find a plot hook that will bring him away from you. And that was coming for Xantha when they were on their way up there. But Little Buddy stuck around so that Milo would not be completely shellacked by a Southern Weepinbell, who genuinely was a Weepinbell that I accidentally put an incredible amount of Southern twang the first time I said bail, and I just ran with it. But I wanted Milo to see that not every Pokemon is super fit for battle and not all of them like it, and that was also a way for the rest of the players to see that as well. Milo just happened to be there in person, so he got to know that. But Little Buddy, super cute, saves Violet from a Weepinbell, and yeah, so they do that, and then we get to Pendleton, yeah?
Yep.
Pendleton outside. Pendleton was a Tegan plot hook that kind of got off the ground and then sort of didn't and then just became its own thing. So Pendleton is part of the research group. We've met Pendleton, we've met Ona, and in a session that will never see the light of day, we meet a Hoot Hoot whose name was Atticus, unrelated to the Atticus Talos. Because Atticus was a gray owl Hoot Hoot. That was the partner of another member of the recon team who handled, or not the recon team, the research team who handled recon. So Atticus had a squawk box on his neck that allowed him to play recorded messages over. So it was basically a telephone, which we eventually just turned into the Porygon phone because Atticus never got introduced officially, so we didn't use it. Atticus was also in a session where Tegan ended up with a Ponyta as a mount. So that was me testing how mounts could work, and the answer is decently well, given the state of things, which is why everybody now is starting to get things they could ride on, especially in Ragnarok. There's a lot of that. Whole lot of mounts in Ragnarok. A lot of things to keep track of. Many more stat blocks. But anyways, I digress. Pendleton is a very sad story. We have Jonathan Gilroy. May he rest in peace. Finding something in a cave somewhere. Because I knew I wanted to do Source Stones and Guardians at this point, but I didn't know how to introduce it, and I didn't know what would work. So I just started putting plot hooks for it everywhere to see what got their attention, and that would help me guide them in the future towards things I wanted them to experience. Not necessarily force them down any road or another, but help them find where they want it to be. So Pendleton has his notebook. Pendleton is a multi-tool for me to help the players get out of a dangerous situation. Pendleton is a way for me to charades to the players when they need to know something, but I can't just tell them because where's the fun in that? But if they earn it from Pendleton by understanding him and playing his games, then they've bonded in it and it works out. So Pendleton and the research crew comprised of Jonathan Gilroy, several unnamed members, and Tegan's parents. So I wanted a way to get Tegan more involved, and it worked and it didn't to do that. And life scheduling being what it is, things got tricky, and it's okay. I won't dwell on the Tegan thing too much. Tegan has some cool adventures, and maybe we'll see her again down the line. Who knows? But Pendleton gets the gang to Xantha, and Pendleton is necessary for the kids to understand that Xantha is not a safe place to be. Xantha is a ghost town, which is what we're getting to. So Xantha the ghost town was supposed to be kind of this weird funhouse area of the Laris region. I wanted to experiment a little bit with how scary can I make the game and still keep the players interested without it being over the top or kind of campy. I didn't want it to just be like, oh, this is silly. Oh, good, there's ghosts and stuff. So it was a lot of litmus tests of where are the players' limits, how far can I push them, and Xantha went really well, I think. My one regret with Xantha is it's about 8 sessions too long. Because the Alluvia had the wrong effect of telling the players, hey, there's more to every city than you give it credit for. But I meant that in the terms of every city. So Alluvia, Fola, Wadalanga. Xantha's an outpost. So they hung out there for a very, very, very long time. Here's an insight into how I plan for sessions versus what actually happens. Kaz and Javier were meant to be a symbiotic relationship. Javier's in, and I honestly genuinely think that the thing I had planned is not nearly as cool as the thing that happened because of what's become of it. So Javier was meant to be a soldier who fought in the war, and Kaz is his interpreter. Now, Javier was supposed to be grizzled, really gravelly combat vet, and Kaz was basically like his support, like emotional support Kadabra, because he could use the telekinesis to keep Javier steady, keep him from falling over, help him run his tavern, which is all that Javier had wanted to do. The players were so suspicious of Kaz, almost, not immediately, but relatively quickly, and there was an intention for Javier to have known who Pendleton was. I wanted there to be some reason why Javier would have known Jonathan Gilroy or Tegan's parents, and I had to pivot off that really, really fast. So the easiest way to do that is to make Kaz evil. And it happened mostly by improv. It just happened. The way the questions that were asked and the way the interaction was going, I seemed really suspicious. And I didn't want to pivot off that and go, no, that's not what's going on. So I said, let's roll with this and see where it goes. So we wrap up one of those sessions wraps up where Kaz is still a neutral party. And then by the time we pick up the next one, I had figured out where I wanted Kaz's arc to go, which is instigating, Ghastlies are running amok. Kaz is the first main villain of the campaign. We've got a central focus. It's something I can do that's not Team Rocket. And it's a villain that they can't predict or outsmart because he can see what they're thinking. He knows what they want to do. The idea of Kaz trying to take Pendleton was nothing other than Pendleton is a good buddy to the Tots. So we wanted to, if they really like Pendleton, let's, ante up. Take Kaz down and handle it. So the fight at the research station with the 3 ghosts, I knew I wanted to do the 3 ghosts. That was a guarantee. Another example of how my plans don't always come to fruition the way I thought they would. Spencer, tall gangly boy, was initially going to have a ponyta named Justice. And at the last minute I said, no, that's stupid. So Justice, sadly, was literally left on the cutting room floor. We had his... Justice was the ponyta whose head is caved in by a pickaxe. Which, by the way, I am sorry for. I don't know where that came from. That just kind of happened. That was off the top of the dome and it got really dark and gruesome. I knew I wanted the 3 starters. I needed that, and I needed Pendleton to be something more than he was, because the thing I had planned for Pendleton wasn't going to happen. We were not going to meet up with the entire research crew. We weren't going to get to meet them and kind of slowly find all the members, so instead I'm just inserting them as cool NPCs down the line. Q, Ona, and some other friends maybe down the line even further. So we find the 3 Kanto starters. They're ghosts and skeletons. I love encounters that are not straightforward, where you can't just beat up the ghost and you can't just beat up the bones. You have to take them both down together, because it forces the players to talk about it and figure out what they want to do. Again, I say it all the time, huge regret. Should have just let Bentley catch Ghost Squirtle, because can you imagine how sick that would have been? Would have been really cool. But in the moment, I made a judgment call, and in hindsight's 2020. It would have been a lot more fun to have a Ghost Squirtle on the team. But hey, we still have Drip, so shout out to that. The reason I made the judgment call in the moment, though, is I didn't want everybody to throw all of their Pokeballs at all of the ghosts until they caught all 3. And that was kind of the intention. It's the same deal with if they had tried to catch Kaz. It's not that it would have just not worked. It would have been so immensely difficult. But it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, if you get 99 or 100 on your check to get him, then sure, yeah, you've managed to catch him, and he'll go to the PC, and you'll leave him in there forever, and then you've handled the problem of Kaz. Congratulations. The problem is when he breaks out of the 3 Pokeballs, because you've got a 1 or 2% chance to catch him. Then things get spicy. So I'm glossing over a whole bunch, and I'm going on a bunch of tangents, but Xantha pretty well wraps up with the defeat of Kaz. The ghosts all go away, and I wanted Xantha to be a safer place to explore. Obviously, you don't go to the grocery store that's been barred up for a while, because there's plague rats in there, and that was just gross. I had an idea for Rattata that had the plague, and I figured I'd throw it in there, and it went really well, because the players thought it was really all fun and games until I told them what the saving throws were for. And then I put the fear of rats in them. So we'll cut a bit to the gym fights. This is the first gym where
technically we still have the mines.
Oh yeah! Oh my god!
And then Claw and Order.
Dang. Okay. I think we've talked about the lost session in the mines enough. So I'll skip that. I'll stick to what actually happens. So we'll go back. We're not at the gyms yet. We have the mines. The mines of Xantha were the culmination of my attempts to tell the players what a Source Stone was, without telling them. I wanted to show them, but I needed them to find it for themselves. And me knowing the players, I figured if I put a mine cart in this mine, somebody will say, let's just get in it. Mm-hmm. Consequences be danged. Now Milo, the voice of reason, said, no, this is a bad idea. And I said, well, yes, of course, it's a horrible idea. But it let us have a skill challenge. I love skill challenges. Skill challenges are really fun. And honestly, I think I should do more of them. But I like them to feel special. So that's why there's only been 1 or 2. So there's the skill challenge in the mine. Stop the mine cart with little more than a 12-year-old boy holding a pickaxe, some rope, and a mole who makes ice out of his nose, which is just an incredible visual. So we get through the mine chase. There's a big Steelix down there. It's giving chase to them. Steelix was the prelude to the Guardians. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted a giant, super powerful Pokemon that was just combat is not a possibility with it. And I've talked about in the last sessions how we were going to split the party. One group was going to have all the Pokemon, the other one was going to have almost nobody, and it was going to be not their team. So I was going to have Nubster be with CJ and Tegan, and they were going to have to sneak around the Steelix, so it was going to be a stealth mission, and the other guys were going to have to battle down to get to their friends to help them out, and the hope was to have those 2 sessions end at the same cliffhanger. So that was going to be a test for me. Scheduling didn't work out for that, so we canned it, and also Phoebe broke her leg. So we were like, this is not okay. So that one, Phoebe lucked out because she would still be walking weird. if it wasn't for that. So and also a Graveler lost its arm. There's a whole lot of stuff. I was about to say go watch it, but that was really mean, and I don't mean that because you can't watch it. I'm sorry. It's because it's not canon. It doesn't add anything. They were kind of a mess, and there's only one of them. I keep saying they. Anyways, we get through the minecart. Everybody attempts to socialize. Milo attempts to socialize, break the other players out of their shells. He is met with ridicule, as of course is typical for young children. Don't be different. Don't speak out to your friends. They'll bully you into silence. I thought it was a nice idea. Looking back, I wish I had encouraged it more. Forced the downtime. Because character growth is nice. And the players have gotten a lot more comfortable with that in the future. But back then, we haven't really found our stride yet. So it's a little awkward. We get out of the mines. We talked about the Ratatas in the grocery store. Xantha to me is 10 sessions that are all one session. It's kind of weird. Claw and Order. We have now Nipsey, the Paris, because I thought Paris was another nod to how creepy can I get? Not scary, but like how can I creep the players out? Make them feel just gross. And having a Paris that's literally just the mushrooms on the back of a dead crab is a great way to start. We had the 2 Magnemites. We have Dial-Up because I just wanted to make Dial-Up noises for a while, and I thought it would be funny if we had an old model Magnemite that's been living in this courthouse for a long time, and because it's so dilapidated, a new Magnemite moved in and is keeping him charged as an act of goodwill. I honestly thought if anybody wanted any of the Magnemites, they would catch the normal one. So I didn't think Dial-Up was going to be a thing, and then they didn't catch either of them for a while. He was traded for him. So we get to the Gloom and the Clefairies. I get asked pretty infrequently what the Clefairies were about. I have no idea. I didn't have a plan. We were going to see where that goes. I am as confused as you guys are as to what they were doing, because that was another bit of off the top of the dome. So the Clefairies were just being weird. They're just being friends in a courthouse. Gloom was really cool. I'm super proud of Ben and Jordan, Bentley and CJ, for working out how to get the Gloom out of the courthouse. That was really cool. Because they didn't know what it was, and it was freaking them out, and they didn't want to deal with it. So I'm proud of them for puzzling out a way to get the Gloom out of the courthouse, just because they thought it was the right thing to do. Good on you. That was another morals test, and you guys passed with flying colors. Glossing over a lot still from the mines. There's just so much in Xantha. Mortar acquires the chunk of Source Stone. I didn't know what that should do to him. I contemplated having it force him to evolve, but I thought that was going to be way too soon, and I didn't want to take the evolution away afterwards, which is something I've batted around a couple times for a couple of these guys. Mortar having the Source Stone and Bentley mailing it to his parents. I think I say it in the session. I don't know if it survived the editing. I knew immediately what I wanted to do with it. Turn it into a Pokeball, send it back, put Mortar in it, give him mini bursts of Fire Source Stone power without the drawbacks. And that's what I did. I was going to wait like 10 sessions before they got it back, but I go, these guys bounce around so much and I want them to have this. And I wanted them to have some facsimile of a magic item because they got rid of a magic item in the Fire Source Stone chunk. So if Mortar had held on to that for a long enough time, he was just going to get more and more and more powerful and less conscientious of his actions. So he was just going to become feral or primal. So he was going to be like a primal Magby, which would have been a totally different set of circumstances for him. And I've jumped around a whole bunch, so let's continue to do that. Let's get to the gyms. The gym in Xantha was the first instance of me not scaling a gym back based on where the players were in level. So half the team. Well, let's speak plainly. CJ did very well. He had type advantage all around. He rolled 1 billion crits. Very, very strong. Milo got screwed by dice rolls a lot. And I kept feeling really bad, but it felt disingenuous to change the rolls, which is something I changed my mind on for Phoebe, which is why you'll see Phoebe's rematch goes a lot better. I had scaled all their stats down, and I regret doing that. And I did it for Milo too, but it didn't matter because I still rolled too well against that. Now, Bentley genuinely did survive that gym. I know there's a little suspicion there, but Bentley genuinely did survive the gym. I did roll the die in front of him, and he survived. So that was really cool. That gym was really fun. I'm sad that I wasn't more diligent with my notes on how those fights were meant to work because they worked a little bit differently every single time. And that sucks. That was no fun. The gyms, I know everybody loves them. The gyms are super stressful for me because I got to do the same thing 4 times without it feeling like I'm doing the same thing 4 times. Because for the videos, it's great. If they're all identical and you guys all have the exact same challenge all the way through, that's super cool. But for me, remembering what I wanted to do every single time and not saying, that sounds cool, let's try this instead, is really tricky. And a lot of the times when somebody gets through a challenge by the skin of their teeth and they get the clutch revives or whatever, is me saying, okay, you're really close. I think you can actually do this, and I don't want to have to make you do the entire gym again to get it another attempt. So I might tweak that in the future. I might say once you beat a challenge, you've beaten that challenge, and you can try the second leg again and then the third leg again. That way it's less redundant for me. There's less fear the more times we do it. I'm getting way off topic. The gyms end. Milo fights Jax again. Phoebe fights Jax again. Is this where William? No. William's later. William's in Wadalonga. Again, brain's on 40 different wavelengths right now. Milo does the gym again, gets the badge, and gives it back. Good morals check there. Because it was so close. I was like, okay, you got it. Like, if you do it again, you can do it. So the gyms were... I keep saying the gyms. The Xantha gym was a difficult spot for me because I needed to do more planning. I thought what I could do is sit down. I had the idea of what the challenges were. I didn't write down anything after that. I knew what the challenges were supposed to be, what the fighters were, and how it was going to work. And then I changed my mind, and that's not okay. Moving on from Xantha, we roll out. We head back to Alluvia because that's the quickest way to get anywhere else is back the way you came. On the way back to Alluvia, we bump into Remus. Remus reveals to everybody that Pokemon do in fact have a language and that he can speak each and every single one of them because he's a jillion years old as far as I know. Remus's voice is a horrible idea. I don't recommend it. To any aspiring DMs out there, don't do it. It hurts. It hurts for days. I was hacking up a lung for like a week after that. It's no fun. But Remus was really cool, and I didn't want to lose the mystique of Remus by just speaking. Because I'm insane. But Remus is fun. I wanted Remus to not be catchable. That was big for me. I'm fairly certain nobody tried or even asked or really thought about it out loud in a session, which is good. I'm quite happy about that because I didn't want to give them a universal translation box immediately and just say, yeah, here you go, you can talk to all your Pokemon all the time now. They're just an endless well of dialogue because that leads to the players asking the Pokemon questions and the Pokemon don't have an answer for it and then they get frustrated. And then it's just kind of weird. So we meet Remus. Remus knows Xavier because Xavier has his vast network of ghost friends. We head back to Alluvia through the nature preserve. We have the Politoad, who's kind of a jerk and who sucks, and we may they may go back there in the future. I don't really know. We'll see. I think there was a plan as well for Milo to send his Pokemon to the nature preserve when they're not when they would be in the PC boxes. And that was an idea I didn't really know how to implement, so I kind of just said, which sucks because that would have been really cool, and I might force that to happen later. Who knows? I don't know. I don't want to force anything though. So I'm gonna contradict myself. But we get back into Alluvia with Old Man CJ, who promptly attempts to buy weapons, and is scolded by his grandchildren. Xantha time was more than enough for Alluvia to go through a pretty substantial shift. A lot of the folks that they interacted with the first time were no longer there because Alluvia, much like any big city, brings in a lot of people and it also pushes a lot of people away. So we see the downfall of, I think it was Ernie, might have been Dino as well. The two of them just kind of fade away into obscurity because there is an actual full-on Pokemon smuggling thing going on. There's some secrecy happening. So we get the Tater Tots get their name because I asked the players to come up with a name for their group and then they didn't. And I gave them an opportunity in the session to say, like, yeah, it has your group name on it. And they say, what does it say? And one of my favorite insults to say is calling people a tater tot. So they became the Tater Tots. That's that. I gave them a week to come up with a name, and the best they could do is what's on the folder. So I could have called them like the Folderinos, and then they would have been the Folderinos, and it would have been really weird. So they get their file. I wanted to press the issue with CJ about his past because it was starting to come up more and more and more, and it was getting suspicious for him. So it felt like the right time to push that little extra bit with Xavier and just say, hey, you should probably tell your friends who you are because Team Rocket's looking for you. And that was a cool little bit from way back in character creation, which we'll get into. We've got the Wild Boy story. CJ being a member of Team Rocket was something that Milo had come up with in the beginning, or I guess Joel and Jordan in the beginning of the campaign. When we were coming up with characters, I said, I want you to come up with a couple things about your character and something about somebody else. If you want to have a secret about someone, you can come up with it with them, you can come up with it for them. They might not know, but it needs to make sense and it cannot, at its core, like ruin their character. So like your secret can't be like, oh, your character's actually adopted. Like that would be like, oh, it's a sensitive subject. We don't want to do something like that. So the idea that CJ would be a member of Team Rocket who escaped and Milo would naturally know about it but not have the specifics because his parents run a mail business. So they see the letters come and go. They see the Team Rocket correspondence. Hey, we're looking for our kid. Have you seen him? Spread the word. So that just kind of made sense and we ran with it. We came up with CJ's actual name largely as a joke. Jordan said, I feel like my character's name would just be the worst thing ever, and that's why he goes by CJ. And I looked him dead in the face and I said, Crispin Jaspers. So there you go. So CJ comes clean with the gang, and they all decide, hey, we've been buddies this whole time. Why stop now? Let's press ever onwards. So the gang's got a couple extra catches at this point that we've glossed over as well. And if I'm remembering correctly, after the second bout in Alluvia, we start heading Mayburnward? No. Wadalonga. That's right, I'm getting ahead of myself. Wadalonga was a cool experiment. So we'll headed to Wadalonga times. In my head, Wadsworth...
Pause for a second. Your mouth sounds are making me uncomfortable.
What?
Take a second and just drink water or something. Or that.
Yeah, I'm getting the tickle.
Yeah, I can hear it.
So, it's because I've been talking all day.
Not like in your voice, when you stop talking, your throat makes noises. And I'm not kidding. It's not Grover.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I thought it was Grover.
That's like it just...
Oh.
There's a lot of fluids moving around in there.
Yikes.
So take a second, drink some water. I hope that's water. And recover. Let your mouth rest for a second.
I know I'm rambling so much, too.
I can hear it from here, so I'm sure the mic is picking up a degree.
That's gonna be gross.
Some mouth sounds.
Yeah.
You're at an hour and you're on, we've stopped
20.
naming sessions. We're on 24.
24.
So
I know.
Some ground to make up.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm trying to not, intervene.
Oh, please feel free. But,
With what?
If I
I've only done it if you've asked a question.
Yeah.
Or have skipped over bigger things.
Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm trying to elaborate on stuff that didn't get
for sure
touched on.
No, go for
mostly in Jordans.
That's why I'm saying
I
don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to interfere.
All right. Wadalonga. Wadalonga was a thought experiment of mine of how much of a city am I willing to throw away because I hate it, and how much of a city can I let the players help me make? So I asked everybody independently, give me 1 to 5 things that your character would know about Wadalonga, the place that you're going to. And I said pretty much everything's on the table within reason. You can throw out as much or as little as you want. If you have no idea or you don't want to, no judgment, we'll figure it out. Peter Grovey. S. Grover. And if they wanted to do 30 things about Wadalonga, that's 30 less things I have to come up with. So we have Lillian's is Milo's dad, a little nest egg from Chamberlain Rooter. His time in Wadalonga. We have Lillian. We have Hot Greg, the Carnivine. Everyone's favorite Carnivine. Hot Greg, who again was just designed to make everyone uncomfortable. We had Keeper, the Octillery that helped tend the plants in Lillian's greenhouse. We have... Ooh, man. The Right of Learning guy was mine, which is why I don't remember him. Starts with an H, I want to say.
German.
Yeah. That's Dr. Lawson. For sure. This is Dr. Lawson.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Samuel is someone else. He's not Dr. Lawson. Dr. Lawson's in Wadalonga, which I just didn't want to admit to myself until we got here, I think. So, Dr. Lawson is the Right of Learning professor. We did a lot of side session stuff with Dr. Lawson. He was intended to be not an info dump for everybody, but that's what he ended up as. Phoebe, I know, really dug into Lillian to try to get her to open up about the war and everything that's happened, the history of it. It's a perfectly logical place to start, but the conversation went weirdly. It did not go super according to plan. And CJ went after Phoebe. So when everybody else was kind of striking out on trying to find unique ways to get information about the war, I figured I would let it happen because CJ had mentioned Howl and or Growl tapping into some of their dark side. And Dr. Lawson would need a reason to explain to a child, hey, this is not a thing you really want to do. So show me that you're in sync with your partner, and if you can prove to me that you're strong enough and that bond is good enough, you can pull him back out of the darkness when you're done, I'll tell you why this is a dangerous idea and why you shouldn't lean into it too far. What else we got in Wadalonga? We have Cajun Crocodile. That was another thing that Joel came up with in tandem with Ben coming up with Remy LaRue, the professional battler, who uses a Feraligatr. That was his main partner Pokemon, and we, spoiler alert, we met that for alligator. Never got to say that. So that's a tidbit if you've watched this far into my ramble. His for alligator is currently watching over Lake Lahana, which is why his restaurant is called the Cajun Crocodile. Remy LaRue was a fun little side project that Ben and I came up with, mostly Ben. He said, I think that it would be really cool if there was a professional battler out here who had a restaurant, and I wanted to go for a kind of New Orleans flair for it, so we ended up with the name Remy LaRue. I'm fairly certain between the two of us somebody came up with that. It doesn't really matter. Credit wherever it's due. Somewhere. Ben, well, I'd have to go look back like 2 years of text to find out. But that's Remy LaRue. He was really, really fun. He was probably one of my favorite NPCs that we've had because he allowed me to introduce Maestro. Now, Maestro is how we get Little Buddy's name. It's how we get Arjan. And an unintended side effect of getting Milo interested in the culinary arts. That just kind of popped up because everybody was meant to bring stuff to the Cajun Crocodile for this big potluck type deal that they would do every night. So that was another thing that the players had all come up with and said they wanted to be a part of. So they all go out and they get all their all these berries and other ingredients and they bring them all to the Cajun Crocodile. And they cook a big meal and everybody's really kind of digging it and we start to get into the flavor profiles of all the Pokemon, which is probably one of the most inspiring things I've seen a player do. It's that, CJ's High Five book, Phoebe keeping track of different berries, trying to cultivate them, and Bentley looking into regional variants. These are some of my favorite things that have just developed out of the campaign so far. And this really it kind of starts with the flavor profiles, which is kind of cool. It was a thing I would have never forced on the players or even come up with for myself. But now that I know it's something that they're interested in, it's something I try to keep throwing in for them. Letting Phoebe find new seeds and stuff. And obviously, Wadalonga would be nothing without the Whoopers. Because I love Whooper, and I stuck them literally everywhere. They're like rats or small birds. They're all over. The entirety of Wadalonga is just covered in Whoopers. And I knew they were going to spend a lot of time at the Cajun Crocodile because I gave them a place to stay. Now, I wanted them to stay there because it was a place that the players knew about and had come up with together. We had the Rainmaker. The Rainmaker initially, I think, was intended to just be one of the legendaries just sneaking their way into the campaign a little bit without being encounterable. Now, I changed my mind on that really quickly because I wanted to give the players something special for exploring, and CJ was the one that took me up on that when he went and found Chicky Baby walking around. Or Chicky Baby, if you watch the session. But yeah, so there's the Rainmaker. We've got Krabby Cakes. Ground level investors, the Tater Tots, in Krabby Cakes. They're going to get t-shirts and merch and all that kind of stuff started up when they get older. I'm sure they'll go back, meet up with Damien and his brother, whose name it's been weeks and I cannot remember this guy's name. But oh well, that's the way the Krabby Cakes crumble sometimes. I wanted those to be a weird thing that the players could buy that would give them a little bit of an advantage in the Wadalonga gym, but not a stupidly good one. It just made them slightly more resistant to, I think, the sandstorm damage or something like that. I don't know if we ever really pressed on it or if I just told them that off camera. What else we got in Wadalonga? There is...
So,
the swamp session?
Yeah, so if we start with, getting to Wadalonga, Swamp Meat, Tails,
Fisk!
The War in the Stones,
Fisk!
Lock Raiders, the Pact of Lake Lahana.
Okay.
And A Friend for a Friend are all before Jim.
Very good. Okay. I almost forgot about Fisk, among all those other things. Fisk was trying to reward Bentley's attempt to get into fishing. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew Bentley wanted to fish, so I said I better figure out how to fish. Fisk, Mercy, and Grace. Those names I stole for Ragnarok, by the way. Mercy and Grace were two of the weapons available in Ragnarok. Just a fun aside for you. Literally no relation. But Mercy and Grace were intended to be his seeing eye Ratatas, who tended the shops for him so that no one would know he's blind. But his not being able to see was kind of intended to be what made him a good fisherman. Is he's so in tune with the water around him because he can't see. And Bentley really kind of gelled with that and put up with kind of the garish nature of Fisk and kind of broke through to the nice nougaty center, which was really kind of a fun and neat little moment for us. So there's Fisk. We have the side missions where we meet Gloop, who was the successor to Gleek. Or the predecessor, I guess. He came first. But Gloop was just a fun way to interact with the players. I wanted to give them a chance to characterize their Pokemon that they could send out. And it was really kind of fun to watch and see how everybody thinks their Pokemon would think and talk. And watching them talk about themselves as something else was really a good little exercise, and let them kind of engage with the world and realize that when it comes to their partners, not every wild Pokemon is a big threat. Because that Muck was just straight chilling, just in a lowland muck, just chilling in the swamp. Let's see. I've immediately forgotten what else there was. So there's the side mission in Fisk.
Yep, the trip to the lake.
The trip to the lake. The trip to the lake. So we have Swamp Meat has basically encompassed most of that, as well as the Tales of Watalonga. So those have both been lumped together. In my head, I don't know when the sessions end. I just have the cities and the stuff in them. We have Anne-Marie, who sells things with Wet Floor Sign Whooper. Love that guy. He's cool. We have Edmund Fry, who is always referred to as Eddie. So in my head, I have to remember his proper name is Edmund.
Or Dad.
Or Dad, yes. Edmund Fry, obviously captain of a ship, because the players wanted to go on a boat ride. They wanted to go be pirates, because CJ saw his future dad there just hanging out. Edmund Fry. CJ obviously highly attracted to the sort of roguish scoundrel folk father figures, I guess. Seems to be the case, as I'm noticing. So we go to Pact of Lake Lahana and Loch Raiders. Loch Raiders was a wild ride. We've got the introduction of Wyman Coover properly, with his algae Skechers light-ups. Not sponsored, by the way, neither this video nor the sessions, but in my head the only light-up shoes that exist are Skechers light-ups, so I guess they did a great job advertising when I was a child. Wyman Coover is unintentionally pulled into the river and subsequently onto the boat that our Tatery Tots are flowing in on. We meet Ona on this boat as well, and this is where Manny hatches. Manny... Oh boy, where do I even start with Manny? Manny was meant to be so many things before I settled on Shadowboxer. I don't remember most of them, because none of them were nearly as good as having the ability to split your shadow and fight with it, but it was born out of I wanted to give Manny bone meringue and thought it was really strange that a femur bone would in any way return to you when you threw it. So in my head I was like, well, what if his shadow could catch it and throw it back? and then it's 2 attack rolls, and the shadow has its own sort of DPS abilities. So that was a weird way to do it, and I wanted a Cubone that didn't have a bone on its head immediately from its deceased parents, because that's really sad and dark, and I don't like a lot of the Pokedex entries as written. They kind of creep me out, and they're a little scary. So yeah, we have Manny, we have Ona. Ona's on the boat. Ona is a blue Apom with Splinter Cell goggles, because I thought that would be fun. I had come up with Ona when we were doing the Pendleton research crew. Ona, Pendleton, and Atticus were the 3 that I had made at this point. And I just figured this would be a good place to throw her in, because Ona seems like she would fit right in on a boat where you have to do some sailing. She's strong enough to help keep track, and she's nimble enough to climb on the rigging. So we get 2 Lock Raiders. We have the newly attained Klaus. And Klaus hadn't had any characterization up to this point, so I wanted to make Klaus kind of silly. So Klaus dives down with CJ. They go scuba diving. We meet Remy LaRue's Feraligatr, who has subsequently become just the most ferocious of guardians, because I wanted the players to be rewarded for the fact that they had figured out the Guardians idea right alongside me. So I had been batting around the idea of having the Source Stones be a tangible item in the world that couldn't necessarily be interacted with safely. And that's where you get these big Guardian figures. So you have the Feraligatr, you have the Steelix, you have these big, super powerful Pokemon that are amped up by whatever element they're nearby, and they're keeping everybody else away. And the Tots figured it out, I think, 5 or 6 sessions after I had finalized what I wanted to do with it. So they said, well, what if there's like Guardians at all these? Like, what if there's one for every single one? And I think there's a post-show where I wink at the camera when they say that. So I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure I do like, and no one caught it. So that it worked out until it went live. So that was good. But yeah, Crash becoming the the successor Guardian to the Waterstone is something that we'll deal with when we have to. We find the egg that we will find out later contains drip from in there. The original intention was to do a horsey, but the gang was so insistent on finding a horsey. I said it can't be this simple as giving them an egg with exactly what they wanted. So I figured I'd make it weird. It's a off-color Squirtle. It's a freshwater Squirtle. That's literally what it is. It's a lake Squirtle. Because I kind of like those weird, funky variants. I thought that would be kind of fun to do. And Drip's getting a lot of good characterization. We're really seeing Bentley take on the dad role, which is just very silly. And I think he's doing a great job. Excuse me. So we head back to Wadalonga for what will inevitably be another in my top 3 biggest regrets of the campaign is not being more diligent with the Wadalonga gym. The Wadalonga gym was something I had an idea for, and I started working on it about 2 a.m. on one night, and then we filmed 2 gym sessions, one at like 9 a.m. and then one at noon that day. So I hadn't really slept. I had a ton of coffee, and I was all over the board. And I'm fairly certain CJ went first in Wadalonga. And CJ's gym was written in a notepad. And then in between the 2, I made a couple minor changes, and I think Milo or Phoebe went next. And it was kind of back and forth. And Phoebe was really struggling, and then we have William's evolution, which was just really cool. There's been a lot of times in the sessions where I've wanted a Pokemon to evolve, and I've hinted at it. Violet Glowing in the, I think it's the Xantha Gym, was the first allusion to that, where if she had survived or hit her next attack or something, if anything cool had happened, something memorable. It was going to happen. Like, she was at the XP threshold. William had been with the group for so dang long. I was just waiting for anything to happen. So throwing William out, having him evolve, and just tackle into some big, like, rock ground Pokemon just seemed like a great way to do it. But the gym badges are yet again a point of personal contempt, where I'm like, dang it, I blew it, and I made the gyms like way too hard and then way too easy. And I needed to just stick to my guns, because I said from the start, there is no order to the gyms. You can do them in any order that you want, but some of them are harder than others. And sometimes you're going to have the type advantage, and sometimes you're just not. So going forward, I'm hoping for the next 5 that I'll be a lot more diligent with it. Because it hurts me to be like, I messed up, and you should have gotten, an extra step in there. But enough rattling on about that. We get through the Wadalonga gyms. Bentley gets a little hint for Manny's future, where he's going to need to go to the Amberite Sierras. He'll feel a call there, because as I alluded to in yet another of the lost sessions, there's only 2 of them. There's not that many. But it was one that we did with Tegan, where she and Koa and Ponyta find the rock source stone, because I wanted her to come back with information that was relevant to the players, so that she could gel right back in again. And then again, scheduling just didn't quite work out. They've got their baby. So, congratulations. It's all good. Let's see. We get through that. We have the classics. We have Diggy, Goodman, and oh goodness, what's his other one? Does he have who? Cup. God, who was Cup? Who am I forgetting?
Who are you thinking of?
Diggy the Diglett.
Whooper.
Goodman, Cup. Cup the Whooper. Yes. So there's the young boy. I think his name's Ty.
Yes.
Ty. The Ty badge. That's right. The Wadalonga gym was very loosey-goosey, because in my head, the Wadalonga gym is not a completed or finished building. It's still open, because they're working on it. So I wanted Ty to basically be like, yeah, one of the gym trainers has to babysit her little brother, and Ty just runs amok, and you get little bonus points if you let Ty battle, and are generally nice to the youth, because you need to inspire them. I'm going to take a brief pause and go get some more water, because I'm getting raspy again. I'm talking too much today.
The throat noises are...
Dude, it hurts. It hurts my throat.
You getting there?
Yeah.
It's freaking toasty in here, though. Can we turn it off? Hi, me. How you doing? Goodness. It's what? January 9th today? And let's see. It's probably February for you? That's crazy. I just did the 20-hour workday. Hope that week isn't as crazy. But it's nuts that it's already February for you. That's just crazy.
It's February?
For me, and that me.
Ah!
Wild.
Woo! Alright, so Diggy, Goodman, and Cup. So that's the...
That's what it sounds like. What you just did.
Yeah. It's this right here. From talking all day. Because I did 9 hours of masked Kishiri. Mm-hmm. Which tends to make me a bit gravelly already. And then screaming math and word problems.
Oh, true. That doesn't help.
Yeah. Okay, so Wadalonga Gym.
Yep.
Done and done.
Okay.
Big Bird, Maybird?
Yes.
More or less. There's some more farting about in
31, which is the first one after the gyms, is damaged on delivery.
Monty.
Mm-hmm.
Damaged on delivery. Montgomery returns to our boy. Montgomery is now a spoy.
Sure.
Yeah. So the tracker that Milo finds, the beat up, gravelly, busted Monty comes back with a tracker in his wing. He comes back with a tracker in his wing, and I think you can see it on my face in the session where Milo's like, yeah, I'm going to investigate him and just see if there's anything in the wound. I'm like, I didn't think he was going to do that yet. I thought it was going to coast under the radar, and I was going to get to do the thing that I was planning on doing. And that was the tracker in Monty. So they find the tracker in Monty. It was a chance for CJ to develop a little bit more based on his rocketeering past, which is where we get the mention of Scarlet, who, as of yet, has not had any other resolution or real mentions or anything between there and Session 60. We have the opportunity for the Tots were intending to head back to Ambercrag at this point, I believe. Mm-hmm. And Milo didn't want to do that. I pitched the idea that they could do a split. So the folks that wanted to go back to Ambercrag, regroup, recuperate, talk to the parents, get some insight with the adults, could do that, and that was what the mailboat driver was for. And then me improvising and talking myself into a corner, it became the mailboat driver had won the boat in a card game the night before, and I was like, stupid, no. But again, once I say it, I don't like to be like, oh shoot, no, I lied. So that didn't go well. That doesn't go well. They end up not going, and the gang stays together because they notice the Abras are kind of watching them in the night. CJ and Milo have their lovely nighttime chat about how they need to be a little more careful with where they go, and they don't think they should go home. We have the Abras are spying on them. The Abras are there, and I think I mentioned it. Hopefully it's not too spoily. The Abras are there because they got the tracker out of Monty. So Monty's tracker coming out of him means, oh no, there's no tracker. So the Abras go to investigate. They can see that the Tots are still there. They go, okay, no, it's fine. Everything's kosher. Same tracker down the line. Hillmouth blimp. Tracker goes away. But we're getting ahead again. So we have Monty comes back. He's damaged. Milo finds out. And we move on. The gang heads, instead of to Ambercrag, we go Mayburnward, which is the precursor to the visions that we get with the Drowsies and the Cadabras. And that was something I didn't think I was going to get anything out of. I thought I was going to put those visions out, and it was just never going to happen. So they get their visions of CJ being cornered by a big bird. That was the only one that I was going to, quote unquote, force, encourage, incite. I knew I wanted to do a massive bird, and I don't want to say too much about that massive bird because nobody has figured it out yet. So I'm going to just leave the massive bird as a massive bird for now. That's what it is. He's just big.
Well, then I'm leaving.
Oh, he's going. Wow. Off he goes. Mm-hmm. Massive legend here. Did you turn it off?
I'm trying.
Put it to off. Or auto, I think.
It's on both those settings.
Yeah, it's toast.
Or I put it off of heat to off.
Oh. Okay.
It's freaking hot in
Yeah, it's pretty toasty. Oh, Grover's like, yeah, isn't it great?
here. No.
Hi, bud. Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Look, he's so cute, though. Look, he's all cozy. Oh, Grover, fan favorite, buddy. Fan favorite. They love
He's
you.
world favorite.
Yeah, pretty much. Where were we?
Bird.
Bird, that's right. Bird. I don't know. Should I just say what it was? No. Let's not spoil the mystique.
No.
Yeah, we encounter Big Bird, 3 cadabras, and a bunch of creepy drowsies. Creepy drowsies were... I had figured out that I could laugh in a really weird, creepy way. Hi, Grover. And I wanted to tease the players with it, because it would freak them out. So the drowsies are there largely as a motivator to keep them moving. I've learned, or at least I thought I did, that I wanted to keep the players moving forward when they're in between cities. Because I'm treating the Pokemon campaign like a points of light setting. For DMs who are familiar with the term and those who are not, I'll explain it really, really quick. The idea of a D&D campaign that is a points of light setting is every city or town or outpost is a point of light, and everything in between is untamed wilderness. So you're not safe unless you're in one of those points of light. So I like keeping the players on their toes, not feeling like it's particularly safe to stay in one place for too long when they're in between those spots. So the drowsies, I was like, okay, let's freak them out. They're kind of in this forest. I don't really have a lot ready for a forest. Let's use drowsies. And when I get them to the plains, I can do the bird. And I want to do the bird. The bird was the whole point of this whole thing. Was the bird and the Eevee. I wanted to do both of those two things. So the drowsies push them forward. They start getting visions of what's to come. We get CJ by himself. We get Phoebe in the wreckage of an explosion. You've got the Kadabra floating towards her, and the glasses are knocked off. And we're like, okay, here's your vision board. Good luck. Good luck, team. The Tots get spooked. There's some trickery goes about. I get them with some illusions because I needed CJ to encounter that bird. Because I wanted them to know that something nearby could either predict the future or show it to them. And I didn't want them to know which one. So CJ gets to see the big bird. CJ gets to see the big bird. And in it comes. And then it comes down to CJ's by himself. He needs to, as a human boy, survive the strikes from this big bird, which he does very narrowly, if I remember correctly. It's not like a great success. It's close. So he gets out of there. It gives us a chance for everybody who doesn't usually interact to interact. Like Bentley and Crash being the only two next to each other. And they're like, come on, man, I don't know this guy. He doesn't listen to me. And Crash is kind of a jerk and is a little bit of a bully. And then they start doing stuff. So we get there. We have the big bird. We see the big bird just literally eating Tauros like they're Cheetos. He's just throwing them back. And cadavers get involved to some degree. Which leads us to the Kadabra who gets cleft in twain and then thrown at a barn that the kiddos are hiding in. We have Eevee in said barn. Eevee was intended to be a contest window. It kind of worked and it also didn't at all. So what I mean by that is it started to work. It got the players thinking, hey, contests might be a thing. That's something we could work on. But it wasn't enough of contests are a thing. Let's work on contests. So I didn't want to shove it in their face a whole bunch. So Eevee was there just to say, hey, contests are a thing. If you're interested in it, this Eevee is really good at them. You could pursue that as an avenue of discovery. Didn't really work out. Eevee is not a fan of fighting, and she makes that very clear. She doesn't care for it, and she doesn't do it. She won't do it. In the event of a fight or a threat like this big bird, she will hide. So we have the Eevee. The gang is all stuck in a barn. Milo's trying really hard to see big bird, big monster, and it's not safe. It's not safe to see big bird. I'm gonna need a lozenge after this. My goodness. Hour 40, huh? Woo! It's climbing. Alright, so we're in the barn. Milo's not able to safely see more about this bird. Derby is like, gang, follow me, all aboard the Derby train. We're going. We're going underground. We're building the subway. So we ride along through. We find Wadsworth. Now Wadsworth has been waiting for his nemesis friend to emerge, a.k.a. Milo, Wyman Coover's rival. I glossed over that too. Wyman Coover caught a Pokemon. Milo made that happen. That's Grover. Milo made that happen.
I did.
He did. He made it happen.
Didn't think it would work.
He didn't think it would work, and I thought it would be funny, so I let it happen. And look where we are now. So, Wyman Coover, the newly named Wyman Coover, because he stole Wayland Cooper's trainer tag and just colored over it. I think it was a trading card, I said. But yeah, he wanted to seem official, so he got himself registered. Wyman Coover is an official Pokemon trainer who is a Pokemon. Because, as with many exceptions to a rule, there was not a rule that said he couldn't be a Pokemon. So he was allowed to enroll because he is a Pokemon that has Pokemon. So it is currently illegal to catch Wyman Coover. Can't be done. He is a citizen of the Laris region. A registered trainer. So he sends Wadsworth, a Psyduck, who would have the ability to find the Tots. He sends him with a message saying, hey, I'm out there, I'm going to get stronger, and I'm going to find you. And when I do, we're going to battle again. So Wadsworth is just hanging out, a.k.a. Psyduck at this point. He's not Wadsworth yet, but he is. Wadsworth was a lot of fun. Just because he's just so silly. And I love Psyduck because he's just really just trying to hold it together, and I think that's very relatable. So we have Psyduck hanging out with the gang for a little bit, waddling along with them because Big Bird. Don't want to get eaten by Big Bird. We get to Mayburn. We get away from Big Bird. And Mayburn smells of cheese, which is a plot hook that I set up and then promptly forgot about. So if you're wondering why Mayburn smells like cheese, it's because I wrote it in my notes and I didn't do anything with it. So Mayburn smells like cheese. And it leads to one of my favorite outros of all time, where it fades to black and Joel just goes, cheese? And it's good. It's good. So we get to Mayburn. Mayburn is where Spencer's parents were from. Currently, only Spencer's father was living there. And it's mentioned a bit in Joel's recap, so I'm not going to say anything else about that particular subject. We get to Mayburn. We have a little bit of sad stuff. We're talking to Spencer's dad, Gerhardt. He has a weird name. Gerhardt, I think, is what his name is. And Gerhardt knows about the war and doesn't want to talk about it. And is the first time that I, as a DM, am trying to tell the players, you're not going to learn about the war from the people who survived it. Because they don't want to talk about it. It's a dark time. They might have neighbors or family members or relatives that were literally just caught like Pokemon and they haven't seen them since. So they don't know where they are. They don't know what happened to them. They don't like thinking about it. They don't want to talk about it. And it's not a case of not wanting revenge or not wanting to know. It's a case of like it might be better not to. because the war proper is over. They don't want to stir that back up and get things started again. The champion and the prime mind haven't been seen since. They don't want to get involved. So Gerhardt was that for the players, and it didn't quite land, but it worked enough. So we have Gerhardt and Mayburn, because that was a plot hook that I had thrown out as an odd aside. I'm like, they'll never go to Mayburn. I'll say Spencer's from Mayburn. Why not? They were asking. So we have Gerhardt there. We have the police station that we get to after the explosion at Gerhardt's home, his abode, which is where we get to the second of the visions, where Phoebe happens to be walking away. Pontiki is there, little Pontiki. I glossed over Evander. I've skipped a lot of things, but again, that's why you gotta watch all the recaps. I'm not gonna remember everything. I'd talk for 75 hours. I already did. I've done all this whole mess. Gerhardt's home explodes as the two Tots are headed towards it. It's intended as a warning for Phoebe and also CJ. And also a chance to set up an additional Kadabra. This was not Kaz. It was meant to be a different Kadabra who was going to be a similar threat level to them. Just another lieutenant in this weird shadow organization of Kadabras. And then Dial-Up rolled really, really well on Sonic Boom, and away it all goes. Courtesy of, I think, an assist from Pontiki. Because there's this weird... Pontiki's ability is any lightning damage has to get funneled through her. So it's mostly Dial-Up with an asterisk for Pontiki. They obliterate this thing, they leave just its feet, and Tia, in all of her infinite wisdom, says, "Don't worry, guys, I'll handle this, and I'll talk to the cops." It says, "We killed it, we have its feet." Incredible work. And it was not something I had ready, which is why Remus shows up and says, "Hey, you did an oopsie. Everybody gets one get-out-of-jail-free card. All you have to do is not be suspicious on your way out the door." And it was also a way for me to throw out a nice little aside to Joel's Pokemon cops. In that we have Cynthia in there, whose name escapes me. Cynthia Peckett. I knew it at the time, and I got there now. So that was kind of fun, just to show that those two worlds are linked, because we do that again in the future. So we have that going on. They get Phoebe out of lockdown, and everybody's like, "We gotta go. Mayburn's a wash, guys. We're screwed. Let's go." So they start heading to Hillmouth, because it's just sort of the next town that they haven't been to. Because that's really all Hillmouth is. It's a very small subset. I think somewhere around here Bentley asks if there's like a tour guide for any of the local places. And I'm like, Hillmouth is not a place that you go really for fun. You end up there by accident or because you work there. It's a strip mine that's basically all washed up, and now there's literally like Ava's tavern at the bottom. That's kind of all there is. So along the way we run into Ancient Sudowoodo, who was a Pokemon I designed exclusively to interact with Ben. Not Bentley, but Ben. Because that's like right up his alley. We got Treebeard looking Sudowoodo guy, nice and wise. He's smoking the pipe. He doesn't take anything super seriously. And I thought it would be kind of fun to have like a grandfather figure for the Tots to kind of rally around for a little while. Another Pokemon that does not fight and would not fight under any circumstances. Just not a huge fan of it. He would just pretend to be a tree if you try to fight him. So we get to Hillmouth with some Unknowns shenanigans. That the session where the Unknowns pop out of nowhere, I think I believe it's Snubble picks a side. CJ like grabs onto some Unknowns at the very end.
You're so far ahead.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Hillmouth Is that after Helmuth?
Yeah.
Oh man, I skipped some stuff. Reel it back in. So we'll skip to Helmuth. We get to Helmuth. Helmuth is literally just Ava's. We got to do some really, really fun high-level mini-combats with Primal Octilleries, Mega Tyranitar, all that fun stuff. That was the one spot in the campaign where I was like, I'm going to allow Mega Evolutions and weird alternate forms. I'm just going to get weird with it. We're going to do this for like 1 or 2 sessions, and then we'll move on. So I'm just going to throw everything at the wall and see kind of what sticks. So those were a lot of fun to do. Then we get the Snakes in the Grass. Snakes in the Grass was really fun. I had a lot of fun messing around with Ekans'. The green Pit Viper one was my favorite. Riot, very, very close second. And big purple one was just a big purple Ekans. It was just bigger. That one I kind of got lazy on. I was like, it's going to be better at like grapples because it's so large and can squeeze. But the intention was... The Little Cup fight was cool. Nipsey and Crash was one of the most tedious things for everyone else to sit through. And I needed a way out of it. Thankfully, Phoebe and Milo go exploring. They encounter these 3 snakes. We get to do an actual fight that is fun. The Pit Viper's got crazy strong venom. Riot is literally like a venom symbiote thing going around. There's some kind of gross stuff going on. And he was just a wall of text that I was experimenting with. And I was like, oh, they're not going to catch him. It doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about this for too long. And now look at me. He's everywhere. But yeah, we get through the snakes fight. We've done baby cup fight. We've got Titania on the team now. Titania was and is still very, very, very fun for me. I think she's really cool. And I'm excited to see where she gets down the line. Siege of Helmuth. Team Rocket comes in. I wanted to make some super over-the-top Rocket characters, my favorite of which is obviously the guy with the Beedrill, who's just... His uniform's grossly undersized, and his hair's very silly. You've got him, you've got the gas mask gal, and you have the Jolteon fellow with the blue hair. Those 3 were really, really fun, and I wanted to bring back Green Guy whose leg got bit off by Crash. And then they just killed him. He died. And I think the last words to him were, you wanted this.
I do want to make a pit stop and say that we missed in Mayburn the padlock.
We did miss the padlock. We did. Let me say it here, and we'll put it in where it fits.
No, I'll just be here.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll allow it. Okay, so we're going to draw back again. So we get Team Rocket, they get repelled. I skipped something in Mayburn. I did. It was naughty of me. So we're going to go back. In Mayburn, highly relevant, you're exactly right, is a padlock, a man named Dane, a key, several dozen cakes, and a demon. My God, I don't know how I forgot this. So there's a room in Mayburn that everybody has agreed never to open. It's been left in the very capable hands of Dane, because Dane is so unassuming that nobody would ever suspect he's got anything to hide. Now, there is a key that opens a lock that cannot be opened by any other means. It's the closest thing you're going to see to a genuine magical item in the Tots campaign that's not in some way man-made and manufactured. It is genuinely an artifact of an older time. It's an artifact from like pre-Ragnarok almost. The key opens the padlock. The padlock can lock anything indefinitely. And it does some other stuff. But CJ and Phoebe cannot resist the urge to break into this room. They see the key, they see the lock. I give them a chance to encounter it. They decide instead to go get a bunch of cake and give it to Dane so that he falls asleep. But when they find Dane, he is asleep. They wake him up. They offer him cake. Now I'm going to come clean for the folks at home what happened with Dane. Because there's a lot of victim blaming that goes on from a certain two individuals that sit at this table that say Dane could have stopped if he wanted to. Dane could not. Because he is watching this door in the same way that Frodo can carry the One Ring. Dane had nothing to hide, and therefore was the perfect person to hide this key and this door. If Dane were to give in to one of the 7 deadly sins, it would be gluttony. And a certain little demon lord who's been stuck behind a door for however long has been slowly enforcing that, which is why Dane was a little on the heavier side. So they bring him cakes. He gives in to the temptation because the demon lord wants out, aka the Gengar. I'll stop calling him a demon lord, he's just a Gengar. But the Gengar wants out and knows that CJ's the one to do it. No better way than to finally push his captor over the edge. He's been slowly manipulating him for years and years, and he sees his opportunity and he goes for it. He exerts the little bit of force that he can through that door. They bring the cakes in. Dane is literally unable to stop eating the cakes until he's genuinely incapacitated and they can open that door. I knew they wanted to open the door. It was too juicy of a carrot for them not to look at it. So they get that door open. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to mark CJ for later because CJ's the one who did it. So that was another morals check of would they help Dane? And the answer is no. So that's a rough one. That's a rough one there. So that's why CJ has a disc on his hand that he cannot take off. So we'll deal with that when the Tots get back up and running, and what that really fully officially means for CJ somewhere down the line. No spoilers here. Wink, wink. So yeah, that's the padlock room. They still have the padlock. They still have the key. It's a good thing to have in the back pocket. But yes, so that's what that was. I didn't know what I wanted the disc to do. I just know that it was, or I knew at the time it was going to mark CJ for something later down the line. When I came up with what I wanted it to do, I said, okay, it can be both. So that's why he's getting the ability to store ghosts in his hand and banish them and do all kinds of weird stuff down the line. Is that it's, he did a thing and now he's got something for it. Gotta water it up. That's all I'll say about that door for now. We'll go back to Hillmouth. Post-siege, the Rocket folks are rebuffed. The Golduck never gets involved. The Golduck was going to do some pretty potent stuff if anybody was ever close enough. But there was no way to find out if anybody was close enough without asking if anybody was close enough, and then nobody wanted to get closer. Which is fine. That's okay. I'm alright with that. We'll use the Golduck for something later. Maybe something a little more sinister. Because who knows? He's seen the Tots in action. As they're flying away, you guys come up with the idea to put the tracker on the blimp. I was very proud of that. That was a great idea. Because now they're just tracking themselves. Or, somebody's tracking them, I should say. Let's see. After that, then we get to... No, I'm thinking of Falchester. I've conflated the two. That's what I've done. Hillmouth and Falchester are two different places. After Hillmouth, you guys meet Deacon Halsey's brother. Flint? No. Flint's something else. Flint is the Laren. Flint is Beakat's Laren.
Bionic Man.
Yes. Are they both named Flint? They might be.
I don't remember.
I don't either. But yeah, you guys meet the Bionic Man. I don't know what I wanted from that. He was just a weird NPC, and it didn't work. So he left. And he went away, and he's gone. And that's okay. That's fine. It's all right. It added to the mystique of Deacon Halsey. He was a weird character, and it was silly for a minute, and then he was gone, and there was minimal impact on anything. So he left. God, after that, Tropius is in there somewhere. After Hillmouth.
That's afterwards.
Hit me with a title. What's after the siege?
Well, there's the Snubble episode. And
yes,
then,
Snubble picks a side.
And shipping secrets.
Okay. Oh my God, we're only there. So Snubble picks a side.
It's episode 40.
Jesus. All right, we got an hour to go at this rate. Snubble picks a side was a good one. We get Bark. Bark is introduced. Bark is very fun. I like Bark. The unknowns pop out around this time. This is where the second aforementioned lost session was. The unknowns are flying back towards the Amberite Sierras because that is where Tegan is currently fiddling about with the rock source stone. So that's where the unknowns are headed. Had they followed them, they would have just led them all the way back across the region. All the way back there. It doesn't matter now because I've moved the rock source stone because that session never happened. So the unknowns basically are now just an anomaly. They just show up and then they go away. Shipping secrets. We meet Hawthorne, the guy who handles Falchester's ribbon service for mailbird certifications. And more importantly, Mox. There's a long-standing question of how many things were in that dang old shipping container, and the answer is lost to the sands of time. We may never know. Mox was an idea I had, and I didn't know if it would work, and it kind of did, and then tragically, in a rescue mission at sea, Mox was taken from us. Far too soon, far before we had wrapped up all of his things, he goes away. So we lose Mox. Mox was a relic of a war before the war. For those of you who have seen Ragnarok, you will probably understand a little bit of where Mox is coming from. Just a touch. But yeah, that's Mox. That was Shipping Secrets. Mox is, as a DM, one of the sadder moments for me, because I had so much I wanted to use Mox for, that's now just kind of scrapped, because it'll never, I don't have another way to use Mox for it. So I would need another character, and at that point we're doing their storyline. So Mox had a pretty decent storyline, and maybe we'll touch on that when the campaign's over, because Mox's stuff is still highly relevant. He himself is not. R.I.P. Mox. But we do get to see Isaac Hannigan and Gideon Bishop on the boat with the Tots, because that was another case of you done goofed, everybody gets one. How would you like to be released from your boat prison? And they took the opportunity to do so. They steal a boat, they get off this big shipping container ship, and they're running away. There's a moment, and I catch myself a couple sessions later acting on information that I shouldn't have been. And this is a problem of DM and world character NPC knowledge. So it's a harsh lesson that I learned so that you don't have to. If you ever try your hand at DMing, and your players should forgive you, because it's difficult. Evie and Sudowoodo are on the beach. The gang is riding. I forget who mentions it. We need to stop. And someone says, leave them. And in my head, I allowed Sudowoodo and Evie to know that. And that was not fair but I did. And it affected a lot down the line to the point that they separated. Now, in fairness to me also, I didn't have anything else planned for either of those two Pokemon, and neither did anybody. So I respect the Tots for actually pulling over, putting themselves in danger, and putting them on the boat. But I was always a little bitter at myself for allowing Sudowoodo and Eevee to know that even for a moment there had been a discussion about, is it worth it to pick them up? Because that's not fair. They shouldn't have known. They would have had no way of knowing. That would have been a great betrayal moment to accidentally have revealed to them. But I jumped the gun on that. And it happens. It happens. It's okay. I've forgiven myself for it because I didn't have anything else I wanted to do with those two. It was pretty clear from table talk that nobody really wanted anything to do with Eevee because she wouldn't fight. And the contests weren't anything that they felt they had time to do. So I was okay with Eevee departing. Same thing with Sudowoodo. Because Sudowoodo just didn't quite hit as intended, and I never really knew what to do with him. So they were kind of just babysitting each other, so it kind of just makes sense that they would go their separate ways a little ways down the line. But anyways, we have the chase at sea afterwards, where they pick everybody up. And I wanted to do a big boat battle, and I'm a big fan of the super campy Pirates of the Caribbean movies where they're fighting each other in the whirlpool, because I thought that was awesome. Because I was, it's a cool movie. I like pirates. There, I said it. So we get a little bit of that. We have Evinrude getting captured. It shows them what the privateer balls can do. They can steal the trainer's Pokeball within a certain distance, as we learn with Crash in a few sessions from now. So Evinrude gets captured. The gang is like, oh nuh-uh, and they go engage in a battle. And there's again a weird debate that happens that I wasn't expecting, and I think you can see it in my face in this session. I didn't expect when Evinrude gets captured for it even to be remotely mentioned, we have to just keep going. And that caught me really off guard. I was very like, wait, what? Because I thought for sure that would get them to turn around and engage and we'd get like a proper sea battle. And it didn't. It was very strange. Instead what we get is the capture, subsequent torture, and then accidental or purposeful murder, death, suicide of Dunlock, and the subsequent birth of Desmond due to the burial danceroo. But yes, I skipped Gleek. Gleek's in there somewhere. I do apologize, Gleek. Gleek's a lot of fun. I like Gleek a lot. But I forget somewhere in there they're in the one of the wilderness sessions and the Gleeks show up. We get a burial danceroo. But yes, CJ encounters Desmond, the Ghastly, in there, which is where he learns that he can control and capture ghosts in his little hand disc. Because it needs to do something. And it also is a decent weapon against some pretty potent enemies that they've made. So we've got that. We encounter Lieutenant Commander Duck, who is a Farfetch'd, which had I known what a Surfetch'd was or would have been, I'm a little hazy on the timing on there, but I didn't know what Surfetch'd was until I played Sword and Shield in the last
I don't think the games were out by then.
Couple months. So yeah. It would have been a Surfetch'd, but I didn't know what it was, so instead it's just a very Imperial Farfetch'd. So he was fun. We had the Doduos. That was meant to be a more lighthearted wild encounter with no pressure for a capture or battles or anything. It was just something unique. They could see that a wild Pokemon was capable of regimenting other wild Pokemon, which was a hint for Mr. Miming about, which is far in the future.
We've skipped one as well.
What have I skipped?
43, Life and Death in the Wild.
Well, that's the Burial Danceroo and Drip, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I glossed over that, but I think what I did is I mentioned Drip in the session where they get the egg. But yeah, so that one. Yeah, there's we have Life and Death in the Wilds. We have Desmond shows up after the burial danceroo. Whether or not those two things are related, it's pretty heavily implied. But the answer is who knows. I think I messed with you guys with Dunlock too. At the end, I think I put like a picture of his kid in his pocket or something.
Yeah,
I think I did that just to make you guys feel weird about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I do on occasion. Usually with like bandit groups, is I'll give one of them something that humanizes them to remind the players when they like behead a bandit and like defile the corpse, and then you're like, yeah, that was like a father of 3, and then they're like, oh no. I go, yeah, you're not so lawful good now, are you? But yeah, so I messed with them a little bit with Dunlock. Not that Dunlock's death was anybody's fault necessarily. That was a case of weird explanation when Wadsworth is digging around in the brain. But we'll leave that vague for now. But that's a bit of life and death in the wild. The other bit of life is Drip. Drip hatches, aka Squirt. So he's a lot of fun. I really like the baby Pokemon because I just get to be silly and goofy, and I don't have to come up with an explanation for it because they're babies. They get to do what they want. After life and death in the wild, there's the bit with Manny and the Krabbies. That was a weird one. That was a case of something happened and it was explained weirdly to another player, and then we got that juicy morsel that is interplayer conflict. And that's where I think for a while the Discord was pretty well divided. For they were very anti-you for a bit there, which is interesting. It's very interesting. I, as the objective viewer of both sides of that argument, I thought it was great. I thought it was really great. But I think that's still life and death in the wild is the Krabby. And then we have Milo's nightmare interaction side session where Milo wanted to work on some things to move forward, so we just sat down and shot a thing, which is something I don't often do but have done enough times in the past that I probably can't say that anymore. Is if somebody has something they really want to work on, we'll do something like the Tales of Wadalonga. We'll split it up. If it's very clear that it's information that nobody else needs or wants or cares about, or they really want to do this one thing and nobody else really has the time, we'll just sit down and shoot it. That nightmare sequence was one of those things. Moving on from there, after the burial danceroo, you've got Desmond. We start heading towards Nutri very indirectly in the many, many sessions of the wilds. We meet Tropius, the guardian of the grass stone. We've got I think that one got an art video too. That was a fun thing we did. Tropius was really fun and really sad. I really like how that session went. That was one of my favorite ones because we got to do a whole lot of interacting with something that couldn't really speak, but could still entertain the little babby Pokemons. You guys were expecting a fight, and I didn't want one to happen, but I was ready for it. And I think I offered you guys like one stat, and it was I don't even remember what you guys asked for. If it was like HP or armor class or something. It was just stupid high. He was like, thankfully we didn't fight it. I'm like, yeah, you weren't supposed to. But that was a lot of fun because Tropius got to interact with all the baby Pokemon, still see some hope. Oh, it's a Grover. He's a good boy. He's just stretching. Look at that beard. But yeah, you've got Tropius hanging out for a bit. We run into, somewhere down the line is Smeargle and Atticus. We get Atticus in there. Atticus has a friend ball, as we know, so the two halves can be in the same because they are clones. So Atticus is but one bird twice. So they were experimenting with that. somewhere down the line at this horrible research facility. And then we get to...
Mime business.
Mime business, yeah. The Dittos. That Ditto session was probably the most fun I've had. I think I had a lot of tea right before we started that one, and things got weird. I was like, I've never been more clued in to like remembering what I'm allowed to say than when I was that Ditto. That was really fun for me. I don't know how frustrating that was for you guys. I don't know if it was at all. I had a great time. I was like, I'm just going to do this for as long as they'll let me. Like, I'm not going to progress or force anything to happen until they go, okay, I'm done with this Ditto. Leave me alone. So I got to have a lot of fun that session. So hopefully that comes across if you guys check that out. We've got the Ditto guards. They had Jeeps and stuff. There's a whole bunch of, like, weird technology going on here. And then we get to see the mime. And I said it a couple times. I've said it in the mime art video. He got a video, right? Am I imagining that?
No, I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a mime art video, the post-show, and a couple sessions even after that. I did not have anything written down for Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime was allowed to do anything he wanted. Whatever felt right in the moment, Mr. Mime was allowed to do. So shooting a guard with finger guns was all he needed. That was he was capable of doing that. If he wanted to, teleport, all he would have to do is like open a manhole cover in the floor and he could go. I was like, I'm not going to hold myself back and worry about the logistics of how Mr. Mime interacts with the world. I'm going to worry about how Mr. Mime interacts with the players and the things that they do. And I think it's you or Phoebe does mimes at Mr. Mime. And I was like, incredible.
I'm pretty sure it's Phoebe.
Yeah, I want to say it was Phoebe and she tried to like throw a rope at him and he was
Yeah.
And I was like, that's perfect. So what I decided literally in that moment is to defeat Mr. Mime, you have to play his game. And then I kind of went back on that pretty quick. And I wanted a weird dilemma, and it kind of fell flat on its face and made more inter-party conflict than I intended, of pointing the gun at a random person in the party. And it just happened to roll on Mortar, and have everybody be just far enough away that they can't get to him. So they have to act really quickly. So having Mr. Mime just, pull the finger guns on Mortar was not something necessarily intended, but it worked out pretty spectacularly in the long run. We had the whole arc all the way up to exercising newly evolved Mortar. But you've got the whole compound was really fun for me because you have the Crash Breakout mission, which was difficult but not impossible, which I really liked. You've got the Ditto guards that nobody really knew if they could trust. So I gave you guys the option of like, do you just try to kill a bunch of Dittos, or do you just deal with them? You're like, you're gross. You're made of jam. I don't want to deal with you. This is fine. So that whole arc was really, really fun. I got out of it pretty much everything I wanted to. And then we end up with Mortar's possession, as well as Diane's triumphant return, who I also skipped over the first time. Because Diane was like meant to be another throwaway character, just a geologist type person who flies around on an Aerodactyl that she resurrected from a fossil. The mimes wrap up. We have the Nidoking on site with Glarg, his little baby, who was up for capture, but it would have been weird. So I was just like, let's just let that one go. I'm not going to force it. Because Glarg would have been really fun to have around long term. It's a fun thing to say. Just try it. If you yell Glarg out, it's a good time for all. But yeah, so CJ ends up with a gun in there, and we get out of the Mimitude Fortress. We get into New Tree proper. New Tree proper is a lot of fun. It was something I wish I was a little more prepared for in the moment. because some reasonable questions are asked, like what's being tracked in the nature preserve, and rather than just saying like, oh, several giraffe rigs are on there, and you know where they are because they're on the board. Like, that would have been a really fun series of events to do. We get the introduction of B-Cat's character, Stanley. I think I'm remembering that right. Stanley?
Yep.
Stanley, and Flint, the Laren. We have Diane and her child, Samantha, who can float. Ooh, very spooky. Fossils, a Duskull, lots of stuff going on. The gang goes to the dig sites. They start looking around because we're in New Tree now, and it's safer than it was. The mime has been cut into little tiny bits. Everybody who was in the facility has now exited. Lick-a-tongue, R.I.P. buddy. I'm sorry. I didn't want to do it to you, but it felt like the right thing to do in the moment, was just open you like a door. So the dig site, I'm getting excited because I want to talk about the dig site. The dig site is something that I have had planned for forever and have not gotten the chance to do yet because we haven't been recording. So you're in for a treat. I'm not going to tell you exactly what you could have had, but the big bear-sized fossil that I kept talking about, big like ankylosaur thing, and the big, big-ish like dog-sized lizard fossil and stuff. I'm super excited for those, so I don't want to talk about those, but they were something I came up with the idea for, and then the execution, and then I was like, I'm really excited. This is going to be really fun. So hopefully we get to those in the future, but I'm not going to force it. Because resurrecting a fossil is not something that the Tots can rationalize to themselves yet. Because why make a new threat? You've got all these other ones. And then we have Wood Boy. Wood Boy was very silly. Wood Boy's running around. We've got a Nuzleaf. Wood Boy is a just tragic story of a boy made of wood with a leaf on his head stuck in a preserve full of giraffe rigs. He's just exhausted. Moving on from the preserve, we head to New Tree proper. There is a gym there. It gets looked at a little bit, but not challenged just yet. I believe you guys get winter gear. Do you meet Bagels first time? You meet Bagels first time. Bagels is another example of me just being silly. I thought a Bulbasaur with Bagels would be adorable, so I did it. And made it happen. We go from New Tree to me messing around with the idea of Sneasel packs. Because I don't know what a Sneasel is. It kind of looks like a fox, maybe. I'm not really sure. This is just Wolverine. I don't know. But I really like Sneasel. Sneasel's really cool. I thought it would be a lot of fun if the Sneasels were just wild tribes. Kind of like goblins. It's how I use goblins a lot when I run more traditional games, where they use a lot of trickery and deception, and they lure you in with talk of one thing, and then all of a sudden it's a big ambush. So the Sneasel worked really, really well. The Sneasel was highly effective, lured everybody in with the whistling. And then we get this big fight where they're all doing beat up. And the idea with beat up is it was stronger the more Sneasels were still up and the healthier they were. So they were doing an incredible amount of damage. They downed a lot of the team. And then we end up with Winter getting caught, I believe, at this point. And then you guys press forward. You run into Frost and Carmine? No, that's not her name. Genora. Genora's up there at the lighthouse, I think it's called.
Yep.
We get to Beaversby. Beaversby is a name of a town that I came up with literally in 35 seconds 2.5 years ago. I was writing the names on a map. Wadalonga was another one that just spilled out of my face. And then there's Etiola, or Etoila, depending on how fancy I'm feeling. But we get to Beaversby. Beaversby, somewhere on the road you send all the birds.
Yes.
You send all of the birds to Etiola for your final ribbon. And boy howdy do they come back battered down the line. But any hoots. We go to Beaversby. You guys meet Frost Viking, longtime patron and friend of the channel. Frost Viking with Emperor, his Prinplup. There's, I believe, I think Derby fights him. Derby does a battle with Emperor, and it's going really well until Emperor just absolutely hits Derby in the face, and it's over very quickly. It's 2 hits, and then it's done. Bentley continues to be haunted at this point. Somewhere around the time of this plot hook, I finally got around to watching Stranger Things, which is why you get the sort of the descriptions that you do of the upside down and stuff. It was a good shorthand because I knew Ben had seen it, so I could speak like that. But that's where Manny's shadow lives, and that's how Desmond travels around so fast, and that's where now CJ can, store things, is in that place, and then he can bring them back out. The idea being you're in one or you're in the other, but you're never in both. But Bentley was in both because he had Manny with the shadow, he had the whole thing going on with Mortar. That big entity, spooky ghost man had to go somewhere. And that was a story arc that I feel like I rushed myself on, and I didn't have to. Having 2 Bentleys running around would have been very fun. The intention was initially get Ben on board with playing 2 Bentleys and not tell the others, but just give him like trigger phrases that would flip him. So every other 20 minutes or so, Bentley would get super panicked and frantic of like, where am I? I don't know what's going on. I want to stay. And that's where you kind of get those. Bentley would progress through time, and then it would reset. And that's where they run into the Zapdos in the tree, and Milo's trying his darndest to be like, yeah, it's a bird. That's cool. And Bentley's freaking out. So I was trying that out a little bit, and it was so much extra effort required on all of the players, and the payoff itself wasn't particularly fun, because then they just felt like they had to do everything twice. So I dropped that pretty quick. We get to walking around Beaversby. Bentley's still being haunted. He doesn't really know what's going on. Cue the fight with the Grave Tender. I think I messed up his name there. That didn't sound right. It might be. Big, spooky gray man.
The Cryptghast.
Yeah, the Cryptghast. Grave Tender is something else. That's the title of the thing that CJ let out.
Correct.
Yeah, the Cryptghast is a spooky, creepy, scary guy. He is... I never played the Kingdom Hearts games, but if my understanding is correct, it would be Bentley's nobody. If that makes sense. I don't know what that means. It's the other half of him.
That's a risky thing to bring.
Yeah, I don't know. Scrap that. No, it's Bentley's inverted half. In the sort of the dark world, the upside down, that's Bentley. Because Bentley's spirit self has kind of intermingled with the Mortar thing going on. So that's why he keeps seeing it. Because he's been in that place, and living things are not supposed to go in that place, which is why Mortar was acting so weird for so long, because that's where he was. Hopefully that's cleared up some later story hooks for you. Because I think that was a thing I meant to get across, and it just never really was super clear. But yes, we fight this Cryptghast. It's very spooky, and it just gets completely obliterated, and then there's just little fragments of it left in the back of Bentley's mind, because now he's basically just terrified all the time. Because I spooked him. I got him good. Kaya. Let's talk about Kaya. Kaya was meant to be a bridge and a teacher for CJ to understand what he had done when he opened that door. Now, I can't say what Kaya is going to be because we don't know yet. And it might become highly relevant in future sessions. I don't know because we haven't done them yet. So, Kaya was supposed to be able to help CJ and be a vessel for me to explain in less vague terms what CJ's little disc apparatus can do, what the ghosts can do. He ends up with his two spy buddies, Jin and Rai, the shadowy Kadabra folk, the little ghosties. And Kaya gets killed. R.I.P. Now, Kaya was not strictly speaking alive, but they have severed Kaya's ability to remain in the natural world by killing her, basically. They just banished her. And then CJ takes her into the hand, and now basically has his mentor in his hand. Because I still needed him to have some way of doing it, but it can't be the same. So we're gonna work on that. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, we take care of that. That causes another rift, which I believe CJ and Milo stay behind after the Cryptghast and the Kaya incidents, and Phoebe and Bentley head back into the normal world after CJ figures out how to open a door back, and they end up back in a blizzard. And they try to make their way to town. They roll very, very poorly on their survival checks, and they end up finding one of the Ice Stone Guardians in the form of a big cloister and a bunch of shelters. So that fight was really fun. Nubster does really well. Nubster gets to evolve, so we have new and improved Nubster. The big Piloswine, depending on your pronunciation. I like Piloswine, even though there's not two L's. Big ol' Nubster can now be ridden by Phoebe and at least one companion of her choice. And they ride back on into town. Everybody squads up from there, and then they make their way in two separate trips back down to Nutri to get out of Beaversby and kind of get away from the cold weather. The birds all return, very battered, beaten up. And they head back to Nutri for a full-on Pokemon Center to get everything squared away. That's just one of the reasons. The other one is they want to take on the gym, and they have some other questions for many things. But most importantly, Violet is like super infected. Terrible, terrible battle wounds. So we get back to Nutri. Everybody heads to the Pokemon Center. They're all getting patched up. And then there's this Jack-in-the-Box. Super rude. And I guess we'll see what happens from there. That's not bad.
We'll see next week.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. A thing we haven't been able to say in a while.
For session 61.
Yeah. So we'll see you for session 61. It's gonna be partially remote. Please bear with us. We're figuring it out as best as we can. But thank you for tuning in for the last of the recaps. Go check out everybody else's, because I'm sure they all remembered stuff I forgot. And mine was just super long-winded about a bunch of things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And maybe I'll do more deep dives. Who knows? But for now, double salute.